Hello, viewers. You join me for a special celebratory live stream hangout with some special guests. This is obviously to mark 20,000 subscribers. And yeah, well, I didn't expect to get here quite by this point, but I'm not complaining. And oh, wow, we've already got the live chat filling up with questions. We have with us, I'll do some introductions first. We have Telltale Atheist. We have CosmicSkeptic. And we have Annoni Mowse with us. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
So I'm a little bit disconcerted because my screen seems to have frozen, so I'm wondering whether it's still working. Can you guys see?
It looks good to me.
Is it working?
It looks good to me too.
It's working.
Yeah,
okay. Good.
fine.
I'm still trying to come to grips with live streaming. I'm still kind of quite wet behind the ears when it comes to all this newfangled technology.
I understand. I had the same problem.
This is why I've historically used a moderator.
Yes. Well, as I recall, you have very, very good contacts when it comes to finding superb moderators.
Yes,
so you're
good
the expert
experience.
on that.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, incredible. Let's just see where we are at the moment. 146 watching now. Loads of questions coming in. Thanks for all of the kind words. How we thought we'd do this, and I should just mention as well, I'm a little bit ill at the moment, so we're just going to try and muddle through it as best we can. And what we've done is we've put together some talking points that we can all talk about. We are going to as well keep trying to get genetically modified Skeptic on the chat. There seems to be some problems with getting him in, but I'm going to keep trying to get him on. But we have some talking points prepared. Oh, is he here now? Yes, I think he's emerging from the ether.
I'm here.
Here he is, the man himself.
Technical issues. Sorry about that.
The Avengers have assembled at this point, and we can proceed. So yeah, I was just explaining, Drew, that I have some questions set up, some talking points which you guys have seen in advance. The viewers obviously haven't. And what I thought we'd do is we can go through the talking points, and once we finish a talking point or we reach some degree of finality with it, we can choose some of the live chat questions to answer. So if you're following this and you have a question for any of my panel of guests, or indeed for me, to get around to it. Now, moving to my talking points, I'm fascinated by kind of the progress of humanity and where all this is going and what's the big picture. So I asked each of my panelists, where would you like humanity to be 100 years from now? So I'll open that to the floor. Who wants to take a stab at it?
I'll go ahead. Maybe it sounds a little childish, but I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And I think science fiction gives us a good idea of what our collective imaginations have visualized as far as the future goes. And so, I mean, I think the main thing is it doesn't really have to do with the practical applications of our science as far as, you know, getting out of our solar system or something like that. But where I'd like it to be is to a point where our culture values a useful epistemology. So that we all are educated from a very young age about useful ways to come to true and accurate beliefs. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And I think if that happens, then any technological innovations that would help humanity live better lives would probably follow.
That sounds reasonable. Yeah, just people learning how to think. Are there any advances on that?
Well, I can go next if you guys are interested in hearing my thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
I think that if we don't destroy ourselves first, then we will find massive advancements. I think that the barrier is going to be not destroying ourselves first. There is an actual measurement, a number that's used to determine like a percentage chance that we'll make it past 100 years from now. And that's a little bit concerning to me, but I feel like we just need to get into something of a reformation, you know, where we don't have to constantly be at each other's throats, maybe get past tribalism and things like that. And, you know, eventually, hopefully we can see a Star Trek-esque world.
Annoni Mowse, are you into Star Trek, or is this gobbledygook for you?
I love Star Trek Voyager, man. That was one of the best feminist
for sure.
TV shows back in the day. It was great.
Voyager's amazing.
Yeah, it is, seriously. I think for me, in 100 years in humanity, like you said, if we haven't destroyed ourselves yet, I'd like to see a world with less religion. I think the world is going that way in most countries. Atheism is becoming, you know, more popular, and the hold that religion is having on people is less. You know, even in countries which is deemed unlikely, like in Ireland, the hold that the Catholics have on people is actually slipping in a big way, which is surprising even for the people who are leaving the Catholic Church. They're saying this is weird. We never expected in our lifetime to leave, and if that's happened in the last couple of decades or something, in 100 years, I wonder what the earth will look like when it comes to religion. Is it going to be sort of like the ancient Greeks, Zeus and all that kind of thing, things of the past, mythology, or will the religion evolve into something new? It'd be interesting to see if, well, we won't see it because we'll be dead, but still. It'd be interesting for our kids and our future kids to see. Yeah, that's what it's like for me, maybe, hopefully. Less religion, more atheism, more science and common sense, which we are lacking these days.
I think for me, I wouldn't even say atheism. I would say humanism.
Humanism.
Because of course you can be an atheist and not be a humanist. You could be an atheist and be a nihilist. So just working towards the betterment of the species really is what I'm interested in. Alex, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was always going to respond in the same way by saying it's not so much for me about the first step, I think, is less religious influence. You know, you're talking about secularism, you're talking about humanism, but aside from that, I think one of the most important things that we can probably do is take the increase in our technologies a lot more seriously than we are, because I think that I was just looking at the live chat and somebody mentioned that in 100 years or so we'll look back on the internet and see it as this incredible, it changed everything, and I do really think that it's one of the most important things to happen in human history. But because it's new, everyone still sees it as kind of a novel thing. It's still very, very new, and it doesn't feel that way for people, particularly of my generation. We're sort of seeing it as just part of the normality of living. But it's so new, we don't know what the consequences are going to be of a completely globalized, interconnected world that's communicating with each other all the time. We don't know what the effects are going to be on culture. We don't know what the effects are going to be on problems that face the world rather than individual countries. I just think we have to be a little more careful and not necessarily jump into things. Artificial intelligence is another important thing. Sam Harris has talked about this a lot. People don't seem to be taking it seriously enough. They don't realize just how much of an effect it's going to have on the economy, on people's ability to have jobs, on general standards of well-being, and the difference between the haves and the have-nots. I think within the next 100 years, not necessarily by the next 100 years, I'd say immediately, we need to start taking this stuff a lot more seriously, so that in 100 years we can have an advance in technology, but do it in a philosophically educated way. Because if we just jump into things, then the technology will outgrow our minds and we won't be able to use it, and we will destroy ourselves. So the way to prevent ourselves from destroying ourselves and still be here in 100 years is to recognize the way that we're sort of exponentially growing in our technologies, predict exactly how that's going to affect the world and put relevant checks and balances in place.
Yeah, there's going to be all sorts of questions, like you say, as things like AI become more part of day-to-day life. These are issues that do need to be dealt with ethically and through the application of philosophy. And I like the way you brought in the live chat as well. So extra points for doing that.
I try my best. So
you're clearly a pro at this. Again, with the benefit of super moderation. So Piano Made of Noodles says, I wish humanity wouldn't be so stupid and homophobic. And Derek McCorkle says, question for Cosmic Skeptic. Everyone wants to know about your life at the moment, I'm afraid, Alex. What is his major? And is he planning on going to graduate school?
Okay, well, you almost had me worried there. I thought that's one of the less concerning questions somebody could have asked about my personal life. I realize I haven't said this yet. I made a video a little while ago saying that I got accepted into a university and that I need to study, but I didn't say which one just because I knew it would follow me around. But everybody guessed it was Oxford, so I may as well have just said that in the first place. But what people weren't quite ready for, and I've spoken to a few patrons, and they always ask me what it is that I'm going to be studying, and they think that I'm joking when I tell them that I'm going to be studying philosophy and theology, because they think that it's some kind of joke that I'm going in to study theology. But I'm doing that for two reasons. One is a kind of know your enemies kind of approach, but more importantly, it is taught from a relatively objective standpoint. And I know that my job is necessarily going to entail having a profound knowledge of religious scripture, for instance. So I could choose to focus on like Old Testament prophecy. And what that means is that I'll be so well versed in it that people won't be able to criticize me in saying, you know, you don't believe any of this, you don't have experience with this, you don't know what you're talking about. I think if I can get the degree and do it in a way that's taught relatively objectively, I might choose to focus on something like Christianity. I could pretty much choose any religion to focus on, but if I chose Christianity because that's the most pertinent religion to my country and my personal history, for instance, I think that will greatly benefit my future work. And other things that I want to learn in order to progress in what I'm doing, talking about politics, talking about culture, these things can be more easily learned through reading and extracurricular work. Whereas I think that something like theology and understanding religious texts and the significance of them, there's no other way to do it than to be sort of being tutored by experts and getting to talk to people who really know what they're talking about and really be forced to sort of study the nitty gritty of the scriptures. So I think that would be a fantastic thing to study.
I don't know,
well,
Alex. I don't know if you're going to get much traction studying theology if you actually want to learn about Christianity, because it's not a religion, it's a relationship. So until you have that relationship, then no, I admire that. I think that's an awesome thing. That's an awesome direction to go, and it is completely relevant to what you do already.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was worried about. If I end up not getting into Oxford and I go to a different university, I almost certainly will not be studying theology, because in most universities it is taught from that kind of standpoint. They expect that you're doing it because you want to become this sort of super Christian on another level of knowledge and understanding and relationship with God. And I'm not ready for that kind of to be breaking down that kind of presumption for 4 years of studying. So I am actually being quite careful about that kind of thing, because you'd be surprised, a lot of universities in England do teach it that way. But luckily with Oxford, it will be a little bit more objective with luck. I don't know about the rest of the students, but I guess time will tell on that front.
That is really fascinating. So what's your 10-year plan with this? What do you think? Where do you see yourself in 10 years with that degree?
I'm not thinking of it in terms of, I mean, most people when they're going to get a degree, they're thinking about how that will affect their job in terms of being able to apply for things and being able to have relevant knowledge that you need to tick a box. For me, it is really just about having the knowledge to do with whatever I want. I don't know. All I do know is that it's going to be something to do with that. I don't quite know exactly the field. I don't know if I'll go into writing. And if I do go into writing, that could be something like journalism, that could be writing for a newspaper, that could be writing books. I have no idea. All I do know is that this topic, philosophy and theology, I suppose as well, have been the thing that I found that no matter what format I'm talking about them in, I have the most fun and I am the most productive. And so whatever I end up doing, it will be related to that. So I don't actually know what the long-term plan is, but it will be something that benefits from the degree that I'll be doing, if you see what I'm saying. But I'm hoping to continue public speaking. I'd like to write books. I'd like to continue YouTube if that is permitted within whatever job I do go into, if you see what I'm saying. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where things go.
Definitely. That's pretty cool.
I think there'll be a lot of people watching and in the live chat as well who have grown up as Jehovah's Witnesses who'll be fiercely jealous of you, Alex, for pursuing your dreams in that way and to that level, because I know that Oxford isn't completely in the bag yet. You've had the invitation. You're hoping everything's going to pan out the way you'd like, but it's still an amazing opportunity, and there'll be a lot of people watching this who'll be thinking, "Oh, if that had only been available."
Yeah, well, look, I don't forget that for a moment, and it makes me realize that if I'm going to study this, and if I've been given this opportunity, in the same way that I treat YouTube, I see it as almost a blessing, if you'll pardon the wording, for lack of better wording, I suppose, that I have this YouTube channel, and I'm considering education in the same way. And because I know that there are people, especially people like Jehovah's Witnesses, who didn't have that, I feel I have a responsibility to use that privilege to help eliminate that problem for future generations, And it's only a small part that I'll be able to play, but I'm willing to play it.
Well, you're doing well so far. Now we're going to move on to our second talking point. I can see all of the live chat questions coming in, by the way, and please do keep them coming in. And as we can, we'll squeeze those into our conversation. I'm going to ask Annoni Mowse to broach the talking point, the second talking point, which is, what is the best way to persuade someone?
Well, I don't know about the best way, but I know a really good way is not being a Jehovah's Witness poster child. I think it was XJW Critical Thinkers who brought up that term, which is, I mean, you know how it is. A lot of Jehovah's Witness teenagers or young people, they tend to leave the organization and then they go crazy, They take drugs, they sleep around, they get tattoos and everything. And for the ones in the congregation, even the ones that have doubts, they see them and they think, oh God, I don't want to end up like that, And if that person then tries to approach like family members and say, hey, the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's like a cult, it's a lie. They take a look at you up and down, and Jehovah's Witnesses are trained to go by appearance, and by your sort of habits and your actions in that way. And they'll look and they think, I don't want to know. And they switch off just like that, So it's good with you. You said you were going to university and everything. I think leaving the organization and being a success in your own life and being a good example just for people in general, for helping people, for being clean and tidy, for eating well, for getting a good job, for getting an education, having a nice family, and basically not being out of control, I think is a good way, just by your example, to take away that fear of leaving the organization. Because, they say, oh, there's nothing out there in Satan's world. Satan will tear you apart. He'll take everything good from you. It's just wickedness and self-indulgence. So if you leave and you show self-control, you don't go into the self-indulgence part of it, you have a nice life, I think that goes a long way, actually, in persuading witnesses who have doubts or they're prone to maybe leaving to listen. And that's a good way just to break into the barrier, that they seem to have drilled into them.
That's a great answer. I love it. It's not immediately obvious, but of course, if you're going to try and persuade anyone to get out of a harmful group, the first thing to do is to show that by doing that, you're living a happy, productive, fulfilled life. It's a fantastic insight.
Yeah,
I don't know whether
No, it's like they're told. I mean, we know, we were there. We're told what to expect when somebody leaves, and too often we see it. We see people, they go off after a week, they're pregnant, and everyone's like, oh, shaking their heads. We see someone they're covered with tattoos, shaking their heads, And every time this happens, I mean, it's fine. You can do what you want with your life. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. But just be aware that every time this happens, you're reinforcing their stereotype of the ex-witness failure. You're doomed at Armageddon. You don't go near them. They'll drag you down. You know, it's like an infection. And that's what puts them off. You see them on the carts with the literature and stuff. If you try and talk to them and say, I was an ex-witness, and you look scary from their point of view, oh, they shut off. You're harassing us, we'll call the police. If you turn up and you look nice, and it's like the confusion of, I thought they told us that if you leave, you're a failure. And these people, it's been a year, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years. These people have nice families, they're at universities. Wait, where's the fear? And it sort of breaks that barrier. I think that's quite useful, actually, in my experience anyway, for at least talking to ones who are still witnesses. They sort of see you and think, oh, that was a lie, first of all, from the governing body. I didn't realize you could leave and still be okay. And I think that's a good way of broaching the whole subject of the organization is based on lies and fear, basically.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a fair point, actually. I was talking about this in one of my videos recently where my mom basically, for lack of a better term, wanted me to fail because that would mean that the organization had won. My success is the organization's failure and vice versa, right? So succeeding, I have succeeded in my life at this point. It took me 10 years of struggling and living on the street and fighting and being alone, but I've succeeded. I have a family and I have a house and a good job now. And it is so vindicating to know that my success is their failure. So I did come out of it with a few tattoos and some piercings, but you know, I'm happy with who I am and where I am in my life now. But I actually wanted to mention one more thing. I think that the best way to persuade someone more generally, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, because that is a fantastic way to persuade Jehovah's Witnesses, but more generally, and I know I'm stealing somebody's answer here, but I'm going to say street epistemology.
There you go.
I've become I'm going around the country talking about it. It's freaking awesome. I love it. Anthony Magnabosco and Cordial Curiosity YouTube channels get a shout out here because just the approach of street epistemology is so relaxed and non-confrontational and builds a trust relationship and makes people more willing to think about their beliefs objectively, as opposed to yelling in their face or saying, that's not true, or quoting facts at people. When you give somebody facts, they shut down, right? They are less likely to accept what you're saying if you're spouting facts at them. So yeah, street epistemology. I know I stole your answer, Drew.
Hey, well, actually, my answer was pretty much a combination of Annoni Mouse and your answers, which is, I mean, you know, I grew up fundamentalist, so it's kind of funny. No one that I really went to church with as a kid knows anything about me, as I said in one of my previous videos. But yeah, it's going to be kind of funny when I do come out and I'm not a janitor. I'm not, you know, doing something to where I am really struggling. I actually am successful and I have a family and I'm happy. And I think that they're actually going to be pretty shocked about that. And so being someone who sets a good example and shows that you can be successful and happy, that's great. I would also add to that if you can provide an example of someone that they may disagree with, but they can't demonize, and you humanize their perception of their opposition, that's extremely helpful. I mean, indirect conversation, I would say street epistemology all the way, which for the people who don't know what street epistemology is, it's basically a kind of modified Socratic method that gets people to come to their own answers by just asking questions rather than asserting facts, like Telltale said. So yeah, I guess I'm wondering what Alex would say, given that we've covered a broad range of things and agreed on a lot so far.
I would say.
Well, Alex first needs to tell us about his tattoos and piercings.
Yeah. Well, actually, as you'll know very well, Lloyd, Leviticus 19:28 prohibits me from doing so. I don't have a tattoo, but I plan on getting a tattoo. I'm not a tattoo kind of person, but I want to get a tattoo somewhere indiscreet, maybe like on the wrist or something. And I just want to get it. You often see people walking around with tattoos in their arms, and it will say something like John 16:12. And you think, oh, that's nice, love one another as I have loved you. They don't put they just put the reference, and people go and look it up and they think, oh, how nice. I would quite like to get Leviticus 19:28 tattooed onto my arm, because that is the verse that prohibits getting tattoos. And it would take people a long time to figure out that that's what it is. They'd have to go and look it up. But I
thought you were going to say, like, you'll get like hitch slap or something like that.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if that's really my style, but
yeah,
like I say, I don't know where my life is headed. Hopefully not too much in that direction, but we'll see. I like a good tattoo, but I don't know about across the knuckles. To answer the question, I would say one of the most important things is honesty, in terms of, let's not pretend it's all fun and games to come out of a religion. Now, for me, I feel like I'm not the most qualified to speak on this. I didn't have a particularly difficult time, but I have friends, and I know lots of people who have had an incredibly difficult time. I mean, Lloyd's book is called The Reluctant Apostle. The Reluctant Apostle. This isn't something we have to espouse the virtues of humanism and of Enlightenment values and all these kinds of things, but at the same time, we need to say that it's not going to be an easy process, and that you should only take it if you're ready for it. Don't bring people in on false pretenses, because then if they start to have ideas and they start to think for themselves, and then they become nihilists or they become depressed or something, that's not ideal, because they'll probably eventually just turn back to where they started. You need to warn them that these sort of thoughts are gonna come about, and it might cause family problems, and it might cause issues with friendships. But we need to advise people about how to deal with those things. But we need to make sure that they know that they're going to happen. If you're advising somebody who you know personally quite well, and you know their situation, think about all of the effects that it's going to have on them, good and bad. Sit down and talk to them. Of course, talk about the good ones and get them excited about the prospect of changing their worldview. But at the same time, make sure that you acknowledge that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Because that's the best way to make sure that once they're on that track to changing their mind about something, they're not going to be thrown off guard by something because you've warned them about it. Especially if you know from experience, especially if you've had these things in the past, and you can say, like's been said, you can say, yes, I am in this great position and everything, but I did have these troubles. But I mean, that just speaks to the success that I did go through these tribulations. I did have these problems, but I'm still here, and I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm still living a great life. And I think it was worth it. Let's not say that it's completely no cost. Let's just say that it's a cost that's worth paying.
Indeed. Now we better move on with some of the live chat questions. Actually, Heartstarter has made a good point, or has said, Lloyd, I came in late. Can the speaker say what their YouTube channels are, please, or have them placed in the comments? I think what I'm going to do, rather than go around the group, is I promise you I will put links to all of the channels from everyone that you're seeing, and they're all fantastic channels, each and every one of them. I will put links in the description so that if you check back later, you'll find the links there. Abigail Parker says recovery is possible with time and help. I would agree there. Araz Garbi says the best way to convince people is to spark their sense of wonder. For me, it was The Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan. Josh says, sorry, another question for Annoni Mowse. Have you ever thought of being a therapist for Jehovah's Witnesses? Based on your videos, I think you would be amazing at it. So Annoni Mowse, you can answer that.
You know what? That's funny, because I was thinking about that, because the problems that Jehovah's Witnesses, well, ex-witnesses, face are kind of unique. We have such weird ideas drilled into us, about not just about religion, but by everything in the world, you know, the way we view sex, the way we view entertainment, occultism, idolatry, everything is warped, you know. And a problem that I see a lot in like the Facebook chats and everything that I'm in is people saying, my therapist says I wasn't in a cult, but I feel like that I was. My therapist says I should get over it. My therapist doesn't understand. My therapist has never heard of Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people struggle on their own. And like somebody said, when you leave, you need that support group. And the problem is you often don't get it, because usually the case is your family and friends are still witnesses. They shun you, or they know that you're sort of going inactive, and they do the shunning anyway. And people of the world, as it were, don't understand, because from the outside, people's knowledge usually is, oh, witnesses, they're the ones that go around knocking doors, you know, and that's about it. Oh, they're nice people. But they don't understand the psychological damage that witnesses, particularly children and things, are subjected to. So yeah, being a witness therapist would be kind of cool, I think. So let's see what the future holds.
Yeah, I want to touch on that for a second here. There's actually something called religious trauma syndrome, RTS. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but yeah, it was a term coined back in the 90s, I think. But yeah, it's a real thing. And there are real religious trauma syndrome counselors that if you guys feel like you have it, which I believe that I certainly do, or did at the very least for a long time, then you should look for somebody that specializes in that. There are also secular humanist / atheist therapists. I wish I had the resource on me, but there's a website where you can go to and look up phone numbers and names and stuff for people like that. And I'm sure that they would be more than qualified to handle somebody who had religious trauma syndrome. But anyway, you guys should definitely look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's the Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion Foundation, and those are two great organizations that help people out. And of course, there's the Clergy Project, which works with people who would likely have some religious trauma syndrome, but they work mainly with people whose only skill is being in the clergy, something involved in that, and help them get out.
Indeed. Now we have one more question I have to ask, and then we'll move on to the next talking point. I've actually had my first ever super chat question. I didn't even know I was eligible because of the geography and everything. But I have been asked by Friended Forever, I have a tough moral question for the panel. If alcoholism is a disease, is cannibalism an eating disorder? Alex.
Whoa, hold on. I need to unpack that. Wait, what? If alcoholism is a disease, well, yeah. I mean,
I was gonna say I have a pretty simple answer to it.
Oh yeah, no, take it away. This is more your realm.
Well, I mean, alcoholism is not drinking alcohol; it's being addicted to alcohol. Cannibalism is eating human flesh, not being addicted to eating human flesh. So the only thing they actually have in common is that you're putting something in your mouth and digesting it. The psychology behind them is really entirely different. One is an addiction, and therefore, yes, can be seen as a disease that needs to be treated. Another is an action and says nothing about the motivation or the any kind of habit that's formed around it. You're a cannibal if you've ever had it one single time, but it doesn't say anything about your psychology. If you're an alcoholic, that's different.
Well, the premise of the question is a little bit dodgy there, I think. But hey, we've answered it. And Friended Forever says, happy 20K, Lloyd. Thank you very much indeed. And we've had another super chat question. Honestly, I thought out here in Croatia, I was ineligible for it. Just want to say I love you all. And I want to know, what is all of yours views on the rebirth of paganism? Except Telly, I think Telltale Atheist. I know his views on it already. Yeah.
She's a fan of mine.
So we can call you Telly from now on.
That's some people call me Telly Tubby, FYI. If you want to call me that, you're more than welcome.
Oh, man, I'm going to introduce you at Faithless Forum like that. That's awesome. Wait.
So, what the rebirth of paganism? Who wants to have a go at it?
I'm gonna say, if it's okay. I'm wondering if it's actually people's reaction to their sort of freedom when it comes to the hold of religion has let go on people in a big way. A lot of people are atheists or agnostic, or they're just enjoying the fact that they're born and they're not in a religion, or they're born and they can get out. I wonder if that has given a rise to viewing religion like it is a pick and choose kind of mythology thing. Hey, we can worship this. I can be like a Jedi, religion or whatever. And when it comes to sort of the Celtic religions, I know Stonehenge is very popular now. At the solstice, summer solstice, winter solstice, tons of people turn up. And it's weird. It's like, wow, this is like we're going back in time. But I wonder if it's because of people's view of religion is more relaxed now, more casual. The fact that you can join a religion or a movement or something without sort of being branded, you're really part of it, you really believe this stuff. You can sort of just partake and have some fun. I don't know, maybe that is it, that before being a paganist was like actually a serious thing, and now it's not so much. You can sort of pick and choose what you want to do. So I don't know. Also, maybe it's because people are hipsters and it's trend. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're freer now, aren't we, to pick and choose? And I think it's safe to say that a lot of paganists and Satanists that I'm aware of don't take it absolutely seriously. It's more kind of a lifestyle thing. Because I'm going to have to ditch some of my talking points if we're going to fit this into round about an hour, which is what I had in mind. So I'm going to shoot ahead to one of the later talking points, which is what motivates your work as a YouTuber. Who wants to go first?
I can go if nobody else wants to jump in on that. What motivates my work as a YouTuber? Honestly, I didn't actually expect to make it as far as I did when I started YouTube. I was hoping. I had high hopes, of course, but ultimately I was just a guy putting, videos up. I mean, I didn't actually expect anybody to watch them, but it turns out I found my little niche, and I found my, what entertains people, and people listen. So at a certain point, my channel actually transitioned into, it transitioned away from me trying to get views to me doing what interests me. And I figured that the audience would eventually come. And it did. I did Jehovah's Witness videos. And that was the first time I ever got like 300,000 views on a video or something like that. And it made me so happy that I could talk about something that I really care about, and people would listen. That is what motivated me. People listening to what I have to say, that it just makes me so happy that I've gotten to the point now where people are excited to see new videos coming out. So
I guess I'll jump on and say that I think that it was almost a therapeutic pursuit for me. I've talked about a few times that atheist YouTube really helped me out when I couldn't talk to anybody else about these kinds of topics. And so I was thinking, I think I have some good things to add, but the way that I would have to do it would be to, put up some good videos. And I would like to, if I can, help people that are like me, that don't really know about atheist YouTube or something like that, get into it, understand what this thing is about, and that they can get involved and receive the kind of same therapeutic benefit that I did. Also, trying to really show that alternative medicine and religion are completely comparable, and the same kind of psychology that's behind both. They're almost indistinguishable at certain points. But I will say that I had been planning to start a channel, and I was hoping to start a channel since maybe late October, early November of 2016. And I wanted to, but I was like, I just don't really know if I could do it. I don't really think I can. New atheist YouTubers aren't really popular. No one really cares. And at that time I found Alex with about 8,000 or 9,000 subscribers or so, and was like, oh, well, this guy's pretty cool, and just kind of casually followed. And then he announced that he was 17, and I was like, holy shit, I could do that too. I mean, you know, if someone that's 17 years old that just works really hard can do this, then maybe I can make something that is, if it's half as good, then people will still like it and I'll be proud of myself. So, you know, I will say it largely has to do with Alex, and Alex is actually the reason why I decided to show my face rather than just, I was originally planning on doing a Bible Reloaded before they showed their face style, like almost like a podcast type thing. And I decided, you know, it makes a lot more sense to show my face so people can relate and receive the kind of same benefit that I have. So thank you, Alex.
Well, gosh, put me on the spot there. I don't know what to say. I'm more than glad that I've allowed your face to be seen by all these wonderful people, and I'm sure that they'll all agree with me. In answering the question of what motivates me to do YouTube, I think now there's no need. It would be superfluous for me to try to explain anything of that sort. If anybody ever, if I influence somebody in the smallest possible way, in a good way or a bad way, if I anger them because I've challenged something, if I make them feel excited about learning about a certain subject or something, whatever that is, that makes it more than worth it for me. Of course, you get a bunch of added benefits. You get to speak to amazing people and have incredible debates. And when I go to events, people who've seen my channel will also be there, and we'll get to meet and talk about things. And they know the sort of things that I know about, and they know the things that I can talk about. And so the conversations are always productive, and they're always moving somewhere. But I mean, there's no one factor, but when people say that I've affected anything that they've done, and I'm talking like in the smallest possible way, it is incredibly it's touching to hear, you know, and so that's the principal reason I do it. But you know, especially to think that I have to say, I mean, I'm sure, Drew, that you would have been doing this anyway, and I can't take any kind of credit. I mean, I like, despite you saying that, it's really kind, but I mean, yeah, that's the reason that I do this kind of thing, I think.
And Annoni Mowse? Yeah.
Last, well, the reason I first did it was because I watched your channel, Cedars, and XJW Critical Thinkers, and listening and this is the first time I allowed myself to watch forbidden apostate stuff. This was like going into the Twilight Zone now. You're crossing that line. You can never go back. And I thought, oh God, if I'm wrong, I'm going to pay. So anyway, I watched these videos and I was like, these people make sense. Like, not just on the broad side of things, but on the intricate details, the things that you think it's just you that has this problem or this way of thinking. And I think it was the buildup of pressure of wanting desperately to talk about these things. And of course, you can't. You can't even say, oh, I think this may be wrong, or I'm not sure about the oh no, straight away, that there's, are you an apostate? Who have you been talking to? It's like a climate of fear. And in the end, I thought, you know what? What's to stop me just to getting YouTube and talking? I don't even have to show my face. And so that's how it started. And then I joined a lot of Facebook groups of ex-witnesses. And something that caught my eye was the constant questioning from people who had left or who wanted to leave. And the advice they were given was always conflicting and usually of a very emotional sort of outburst way. Like, for example, people would say, I want to leave. Should I disassociate or just fade, you know? And people would always sort of say emotionally, you should just leave. They have no power over you. And I would think, well, hang on a sec. You don't know that person's circumstances. And also the phrase, they have no power over you. doesn't cut much ice with me. The elders do have a power over you if you have family who are Jehovah's Witnesses. That is the sad truth. If you have nobody in the organization, which some luckily do, you can leave without a trace. If they just fellowship you, who cares? You're not part. But when your mother, your brother, your husband or wife, your children, they are part of that cult, and they say to you, you are disfellowshipped, and it's announced from the platform, that's it for you. People will be terrified to approach you. Your life is impacted in a big way. So these kind of issues, I just thought, they deserve to be addressed properly, not just with emotional, oh, you know, screw them, and just, you know, like go to the Kingdom Hall and scream or burn the literature on the front of the Kingdom Hall. By all means, do that if you want, but people deserve to be sort of informed so they know what is best for them. And that's just another reason questions that come up in these groups, it's ongoing every day, and things that people don't even think about. One that was brought up recently was, I've left the Jehovah's Witnesses for 10 years. I never thought I would go back, but someone I knew in a congregation died. Should I go to the funeral or not? And people are seriously scared. They're like, it's been 10 years, but people there still know me. What's your advice? Should I go back? Should I just forget it? And people are like, no, don't go back. Don't let them have the power of you. But you really have to make these kind of decisions seriously. Because if you don't make somebody's funeral, somebody's wedding or whatever, it's like a once in a lifetime thing. And, you know, with funerals, that's it. You may regret. So I thought, well, it's worth talking about. And people seem to be listening, which is great. You know, helping people is a big deal, actually.
Indeed. And you're relatively recent to the kind of the YouTube party, but your channel is already attracting a lot of attention. And again, I'm going to be putting a link below so that if you're not already subscribed, please do check out Annoni's channel. You know, I think when I first started out with my activism, it was more about catharsis and more about healing myself and getting stuff off my chest and, you know, sharing my discoveries and ranting and that kind of thing. But that was back in 2010, 2011, and there's only so much catharsis that you need. So there is still kind of like a fire in my belly where I feel like indignation at what's happening in my life. So there is still a slightly cathartic element, but you do reach a point where it becomes more about helping other people using, you know, the knowledge that you've acquired, the experience that you've acquired, and to some degree, skills that you've acquired through activism. And using that to help others. But yeah, I like what you were saying, what, you know, and as well with Drew talking about how Alex had kind of motivated you. I think that that's kind of like a common theme where you see other people and it gives you the inspiration. And I just wanted to say as well, when it comes to motivation, that sometimes you can think that sometimes you can think that by saying something, you are stating the obvious and you are saying something that everyone knows. So what's the point in even saying it? But you will be surprised sometimes. Sometimes it takes your particular way of saying it for the penny to drop. And that's something that I have found throughout my activism is, you know, when I'm preparing a video or maybe when I'm talking in one of my rebuttals, a thought will pop into my head and almost instinctively I'll think, oh, well, they'll already know that. But then I'll kind of check myself and think, well, you know, not all of them necessarily will. And sometimes just by wording it your own way, that, you know, you can, you know, going back to what we were saying before, persuade people. So that was just my insights on that. Let's see. Now, we've had some more live chat stuff coming through, including, I see, wow, we've had some more super chat stuff. So I'll take this one. Cristiano Simonetti says, what do you think the next Borg tactic will be? Caring only about the super loyal Jehovah's Witness or slightly soften the rules in order to not lose members? I think that we're not kind of seeing a softening of rules at the moment, unfortunately. I think if anything, there's more of like a circling of the wagons going on. Poison Ivy says, younger sibling is considering baptism. What do I do? Thank you for the thought-provoking videos and congratulations on reaching this milestone. It really depends, I guess, Poison Ivy, on how indoctrinated your youngest sibling is and how open they are to conversation. The thing to remember if they are indoctrinated is that they need to feel as though they're in control of the situation. So you're making the worst mistake of your life. Don't do it. If they feel as though you're ordering them, then they may kind of just close off and not take your advice on board. But if you're somehow able to just get into a conversation and try and find out what their motives are, that might help. 1, 2, 3.
Can I just
yeah, sure,
there
by all means. Yeah.
With the baptism thing as well, something that I was sort of thinking about when it was my judicial committee, I had the thought that I think a lot of people do, which is, hang on, how much power do they really have over me? Who are these people? There's no legality here. They aren't cops or whatever. What's going on? And I actually made that mistake, you may say, of bringing that up to the elders in you know, sort of a meek kind of way. I was like, you know, how legal is this? And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's worth thinking about. The overseer of my meeting, he said that when you enter into the assembly hall or wherever you got baptized, and you stand up and you answer correctly, affirmatively to the questions they throw out, you know, from the platform, you enter into a legal oral contract with a Jehovah's Witness organization, which gives them the legal rights to do what they want as per the contract, you know, the terms and conditions. As you know, if you mess up, we can get rid of you, we can subject you to shunning and blah blah. Which is why it's difficult for witnesses who want to leave to say some people want to take them to court and challenge the whole shunning thing. Is it legal and whatever? It's against my human rights. If somebody wants to get baptized, it's up to them. But they have to understand something which I was told, which is this is not just like a fancy emotional thing and you're telling the world that you love Jehovah and you've already made this decision in your heart anyway. You are entering into a legal contract with this organization. From this day forward, you are now subject to anything that is in their terms, conditions, their rules. So if you want to do that, do it, but don't view it in a romanticized way. You know, seriously, if they want to leave, there is no easy exit. There is no exit, really. So I view it more as an objective. I'm signing a contract here. It's kind of like they often say, it's like a marriage. It's like a marriage. It's the best decision of your life. Yeah, it's like a marriage. You're signing a contract here. This is a legal thing. This is like serious stuff now. So it's cute if somebody wants to get baptized and they're like 10 or 15 and they love Jehovah and they want to go to Bethel. That's cute and everything, but this is like serious grown-up shit. If they want to sign the contract,
it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, then do it. But they need to know what they're getting into. This is not romanticized stuff.
Sure, it's definitely worthwhile stressing that. Yeah. No getting out. Let's see. 123 Goober P has a super chat question. Is all the Watchtower property flipping a cover for international money laundering? Opinions, views, wild conspiracy theories, anyone? 123 Goober P, I like to talk about stuff that I can absolutely prove and is completely bulletproof. It could be that there is financial foul play afoot, and there's one or two kind of lines of evidence that kind of hint in that direction. But there's two issues. One, doesn't seem to be enough evidence to kind of mount a spirited argument along those lines. And two, I'm not really good with money and picking apart financial documents, which limits me in that regard. I hope that sort of answers your question.
I would add on to that, if you wouldn't mind. I'd just add on that, you know, I'd say that's actually not the case. I mean, Watchtower is such a generous and honest and reputable organization. I can't see it personally.
Nobody can say that with a straight face.
Up in arms at that comment. Let's see. Pizza Smith Dude says this question is mostly for Lloyd, but open to everyone. But as an atheist, Lloyd, what is your explanation of spiritual experiences achieved through psychedelics and meditation? I don't have much experience with psychedelics or with meditation, in fact. I guess it's very possible to have any kind of spiritual experience, whether you are meditating or taking drugs or whatever. I consider myself still spiritual, even though I'm an atheist. For me, spirituality is acknowledging that there are bigger things than you in life and in the universe. So yeah, that's. I still think it's possible to have spirituality with or without any assistance from either religion or drugs or meditation. I hope that answers your question.
I actually, yeah, I wanted to mention something. Alex seems to be a little bit of a fan of Sam Harris, and I'm kind of a fan of the guy too. I really like Sam Harris, but I didn't buy any of that whole, I don't know, spirituality through meditation or psychedelics thing until I like heard Sam Harris's story. The dude like meditated like 8 hours a day for who knows how long, and he endorses that stuff. So I guess I can, I mean, I haven't seen the evidence for it, but the fact that an atheist like that is kind of endorsing the fact that meditation does work and psychedelics and things like that is, you know, reason enough for me to investigate further, I guess. It's kind of crazy to me, I guess.
There's some research in mental health that, yeah, both psychedelics used definitely in moderation or to help treat certain disorders, and as well as meditation, both potentially have a positive effect. Helping people regulate certain conditions, and bringing a better quality of life to some people. That being said, I don't personally use the word spiritual, partly because I'm in the Bible Belt. So if I say spiritual, that automatically means that you are dedicated to the single, well, not quite the single, the Trinity. You're dedicated to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is what you are experiencing. That's the only kind of spirituality that even exists. I mean, it's unless I go to Austin or San Antonio, maybe, or go to really hipster places in Dallas here in Texas, then I'm not going to meet anyone who has any kind of idea about spirituality that's any different from the conservative Protestant idea of it. So it comes along with so much baggage that I never use the word spiritual.
I don't use it either. I actually find that a lot of the time when people use the word spiritual, the first question I always ask is I ask them to define spiritual. I say, what do you mean? Do you believe in a spirit? If not, then what exactly do you mean? And 90% of the time, they can't tell me. It doesn't happen. Some people can, and people who've actually given it some thought usually can. But a lot of the time, people leave a religion or something, but they feel like they still need something, and it's not in the kind of they're not like, they haven't gone and become scientifically literate and realized that by bigger things you could be talking about the universe or anything like that. I mean, they just have literally a God-shaped hole, and so they just say, oh, I'm spiritual, and let's be done with it. But you ask them what they actually mean, and a lot of the time they have absolutely no idea. That's why I quite like the approach of someone like Sam Harris. Yeah, I mean, I try to stay clear of the word fan, especially with Sam Harris, because some of the things he said have completely convinced me and changed my outlook, like his free will book. Some of them I found completely ridiculous and ungrounded, like The Moral Landscape, which I think is not amazingly philosophically illuminating. But the way I understand Sam Harris's spirituality, so to speak, and I think almost that might be a silly thing to call it, because he seems to suggest that something like, I've heard him talk about it before, and he says, even if you just do something like sitting down and collecting your thoughts, sit down, stop thinking about the world, just try and notice the things that you're feeling. And one of the things that he does when he promotes meditation is he says that the most important thing you should be doing is clearing your head and just trying to notice certain emotions that are cropping up. Maybe some anger comes from somewhere, maybe some disgruntlement, whatever. Just try and notice your thoughts. And to me, that doesn't need to be labeled spiritual. I mean, when you tell, if somebody's stressed out and you tell them, look, just go and sit down, have a cup of tea, and just calm down. That's the same kind of principle. I think the kind of spirituality that Sam Harris espouses can be anything from believing that you can sort of connect to the universe in a spiritual way and really become sort of one with all, almost like a kind of Buddhist. Obviously, Sam Harris is incredibly influenced by Buddhism, but I think as well as that, it encompasses just being level-headed, just thinking carefully about the way that you're conducting your thoughts. But I don't think that necessarily needs to be labeled spiritual. I don't quite understand why that's necessary, especially because when you ask 10 people what they mean by spiritual, you get 10 different answers. I'm interested in how, Lloyd, you would define spirituality. I mean, you say that it means that there's something bigger, but I mean, would that not just suffice to say that there's something bigger? What is spirituality? Is there any kind of spirit involved in that, or is it just that single principle that there's something bigger? Not entirely sure what it is. I mean, how would you define it?
Well, now that you raise that point, I've just Googled the definition of spirituality, and the first definition on Google is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul, as opposed to material or physical things. Honestly, I obviously don't believe in a spirit or soul, but I do believe that there is more to be concerned with than purely material. Oh, crumbs! Maybe I'm not spiritual then. I just like the idea.
No, I think that's fine. A lot of people, like I would speak of the soul in an Einsteinian way of you know what I mean if I say that something hurts my soul. You know what I mean. And I think if you take it in almost a poetic sense, you could say, look, if you're caring more about the soul, and if by the soul you mean, or the spirit you mean, your inner meditations on thought processes and being aware of your emotions and that kind of thing, if that's what you mean by soul, and if by spirituality you mean caring more about that than caring about the external world, then fair enough. But again, I still don't think it's. I still think it's a frivolous label. It's why name it spirituality, especially when you're then giving yourself the baggage of tying yourself to a group of people who include people who do genuinely believe that the sort of Deepak Chopras of the world, that they believe that because everything can be broken down to the quantum, and because the quantum can be this and that, you can be this and the universe, and you're one and the same. You're throwing yourself into that basket. And I say, why do that? You know, I can recognize my thoughts. I can recognize that there's more to me than more to the universe than me. But I wouldn't label it spirituality because of the baggage that comes along with it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess I need to revisit that. I'm thinking more in terms of feelings of awe and feelings of things being bigger than purely me. But maybe I need to find a different word. I don't know.
Alex, if you're wondering what your next video might be about, I would suggest that.
Yes, do it.
Lloyd Evans, spirituality debunked.
Right.
Yeah. In the red corner.
I didn't mean for it to be for that to come across as quite so aggressive, you might say. But
no, it's brilliant.
If it's a label that works for you, then there's no problem with that. I just think that labels are incredibly important. Like Drew was saying, you know, labels are more important than they should be. This is why we spend. I don't know about you guys. I know you probably all touched on it at least, but I've certainly spent a lot of time talking about the label of atheist, trying to define exactly what it means and how we should use it and why people should use it in different ways, which is, I shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't be spending our time worrying about labels. These are completely just fatuous things that we don't need to be worrying about. But unfortunately, they do hold some influence. And so I think we just need to be a bit careful about throwing around words like spiritual, throwing around words like faith or soul or the spirit, because people can interpret that in a world of different, in completely different ways. And we just need to make sure we're aware of the different interpretations of those labels and how we can make sure that people know what we actually mean when we say that. Yeah,
I do take that point. I also have to take a few more super chat questions to the point where the talking points are going to have to be managed very skillfully in our concluding comments. Veronica Duncan says, how do you feel your new book will help people? Veronica, I'm hoping that it will what it does do, in fact, is just condense down all of the advice I would give to someone who's in the process of leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, and just puts it all in one kind of resource. Because I've obviously been receiving emails and messages over the years from different individuals in different stages of leaving, and it wasn't kind of just a case of shutting them all up, but it certainly was a case of thinking, well, there's clearly a lot in this predicament that kind of helps as many of them as possible. What would I say? And that's what the new book is basically doing: How to Escape from Jehovah's Witnesses. Gorgeous Roddy Chrome, I love these names. Does the panel know Netflix's new The Joel McHale Show has a Pillowgate segment? It includes an actual clip from the Watchtower Bethel training video. Yes, I was aware of that, gorgeous Roddy Chrome. And if anyone else hasn't checked that out and you have Netflix, go on the Joel McHale Show. I think it's at the 25-minute mark. It shows Gary Bro disgracing himself with his ideas about masturbation. Arna Narang says, question for the panel. I think we'll take this question and then we'll conclude. And if you guys can answer it as briefly as you can, your view on religious, cultural, infant male circumcision, views on Jewish and Muslim defense for it.
If I can take this.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. Right. Just so everyone understands what circumcision is, right? It's the taking away of the foreskin of a penis of a baby. Like, let's just put it out there and say what it is. This is a painful procedure, and it's often unnecessary for children. A lot of people grow up and they really wish they hadn't had it done and stuff like that. I know of people who had it done medically for medical reasons, and that kind of thing to me is the only acceptable way to literally cut parts of your body off that you can't grow back. You know, I know there are cases where young boys find it painful to go to the toilet, and so they have to have an operation. Fine. But when it comes to, again, romanticized, beliefs based on a book, and it's unnecessary and it causes pain and all this nonsense, to me, that is what it is, nonsense. I know it offends people, but I don't care. You know, and people need to start, I don't know, looking at things the way they really are, instead of through the eyes of this sort of romanticized religious nonsense. I really can't abide it, honestly, this circumcision issue.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Who would want that? That's terrible. Why would somebody want to do that? No to all of that. Don't do it. That's all I have to say.
Don't mutilate your babies. That's something that you shouldn't really need to say, isn't it?
The medical arguments that people make, because a lot of religious people make arguments that are arguing for some kind of health benefit, when ultimately, if you even broke those down, that's not actually why they defend it in the first place. Those aren't the real reasons why they believe in it. They take it on faith anyway, and then they just defend their faith with that, with certain medical arguments. But the medical arguments for it are just absolute bunk. They're ridiculous. They're so it's so minimal with modern hygiene that it makes absolutely no sense to take away that choice.
Yeah.
So I would say watch Rationality Rules video on circumcision. It's excellent and is the best short response I can give.
Yeah, I concur. Some of the responses are quite interesting. They'll say things like, you know, if you cut off your foreskin, you have less of a chance of this infection or this infection or this type of cancer. And well, the thing is, like, a lot of these things are true, but it's also true that you're at less risk of breast cancer if you cut off your breasts. But you're not going to do that, are you? That's an absolutely ridiculous line of thought. Like Sven already said, that there are people who grow up their entire life wishing this operation hadn't been done. Now, there are people, I'm sure, who grow up all of their lives wishing that it had been done. But of course, if that's the case, then they can get it done. And the key thing is allowing a person to make that choice for themselves. You know, there's nothing wrong with if that's really what you want to do for whatever reason. Obviously, if you were doing it for religious reasons, I'd want to try and talk you out of it, because although it's your choice, I think that choice is being influenced by something unwarranted. But ultimately, that's your choice. I can't stop you. But there should be an age of consent for it. There should be, unless of course medical reasons are completely different. I mean, you can justify a ton of different operations for medical reasons. Some people need to have their legs cut off for medical reasons, but you wouldn't recommend just doing that for aesthetic purposes, you know. And so any kind of religious argument for it, that is the first red flag. You know, if you want to defend it medically, fine. You know, I understand there are many cases where it might be necessary. Even if you wanted to defend it aesthetically or stylistically when you're over whatever age we decide is appropriate, fine, sure. But if your argument is religious, I'll listen to you, but bear in mind that I probably will immediately be able to tell you exactly why that's a ridiculous argument. So it's almost not worth the time if that's how you're going to try and defend it. Same with any argument. Don't try to defend a position with your religion. Try and defend it with something else. Even if you're doing it for religious purposes, find another way to defend it, because you're not going to convince anybody of it. So the religious, like Drew says, they're bunk.
Indeed. I think we're all in consensus on that one. I'm just going to ask everyone watching, how many are there watching at this point? It's telling me 277. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I'm going to answer myself the final super chat question, and then I'm going to ask if you could please refrain from sending any more, or at least not expect me to answer them, because we are approaching the end of the show now. Cristiano Simonetti asks, do you think it will ever be possible in a very distant future to achieve a religiousless society? I can't see it personally. I think that that religion seems to be quite something that many people apparently need in their lives. Obviously, I don't need it, but I can understand why some would feel that they need it. I think that the challenge is to wrestle religion into a position where it's damaging people's religion. So, in other words, what people want to believe in the privacy of their own home. I don't think I can't see a time when everyone on the planet in their minds is thinking religion's a load of nonsense. I can't quite see that. But if we can at least get to a stage where organized religion isn't inflicting harm on people, that's the kind of society that I would love for my children and grandchildren. I'm going to go to my final talking point, and that's it then. Then that's the end of the live stream. And I actually had two talking points, which I'm going to kind of fashion into one. So are there any techniques that you can recommend that have significantly improved the quality of your videos? Was going to be one of them. But I'm going to ask that you kind of try and incorporate into your answer to the question, what advice do you have for new YouTube creators? So if I can simplify, what would your advice be to new YouTube creators? And is there anything simple that they can do to make good quality content?
I would say people, I mean, coming from someone who has a really nice camera at this point, audio is extremely important on the technical side of things. If you look great but sound terrible, I'm not going to watch. And so that's a huge thing. I mean, like Alex and I both started with phones, but we had nice microphones. And that it works for most people. Other than that, I would say that if you're going to talk about something that's been talked about, like Pascal's wager, come at it from a different point than you can ever see has been touched on in a large video. Like Cosmological, a very small YouTuber, like 800 something subscribers, made one of my favorite Pascal's wager videos ever. And it's because he invented a religion called Pascalianism invented a religion to a fictional religion in order to come back and debate that kind of topic. So don't make the same video that a bunch of people have made, although your voice is important. But I think that you probably have the creativity enough to come at it from a just slightly different angle to hopefully open a few new eyes and get the people who already have heard seemingly all of it to consider a new angle on it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Do you want to go, Anonymous?
No, you go ahead. I want to hear what you
Okay.
have to say.
I was going to say that you have to find your niche. I'm probably gonna get yelled at for not calling it a niche. Excuse me, I'm an American. Anyway, you need to find your niche market. You need to find the thing that appeals to a large number of people. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this is actually the most important, don't stop. Don't give up. Get to the point where everybody else would give up, and then you don't give up. You just keep going forever. That's the biggest thing you need to do. And also, the longer you do this work, the more experience you get, the better things start to sound and look. And audio is extremely important. Audio and video, if that's what you're using. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, when it comes to the format that you want to take, a lot of people are nervous about making videos for the same reason I was and still am a little nervous, especially if you haven't officially left. You don't want people to catch you. You just know that someone out there is going to see your face and they're going to say, hey, I know him or her, and then you're going to get reported or whatever. So think to yourself, okay, well, if I don't want to make a video, I don't want my face out there, could I make a podcast? Could I make an animation? Could I use a mascot or something? There is a way to talk. You know, I get a lot of messages and emails and comments with people saying, I'd love to make a video, but I think I'm too scared. You're not. Seriously, there's nothing to be scared about. And people also say, I don't know if I know enough to talk about. If you've been a witness for any sort of amount of time, especially if you've been a witness for a considerable amount of time, you know your subject. Seriously, if there's one thing that we are experts on, it's the Jehovah's Witness religion and the Bible and all that kind of thing. Your own experience is always valuable because everybody's been through something. And we all think, oh yeah, well, everyone goes through that, or it's normal, or it's not a big deal. A lot of the time it is, actually. You know, people's experiences are valuable. It's good to show other witnesses and ex-witnesses that other people have been through the same thing. So don't let that put you off and think, oh, well, there's 8 million of us and, you know, I don't really count. You really do. So get out there and make a video. It doesn't take much, you know.
Great advice.
I would only add, look, the quality of your content doesn't lie in your camera or your audio or your lighting. Your quality ultimately lies in your voice. You can have the most expensive and wonderful setup in the world and be saying nothing of worth. The most important thing that you need to work on, if you have a choice, you can either afford to buy a new microphone or a new book. Get the book. Though I would say, you know, once that groundwork has been set, yes, audio, I can't agree more, is far more important. You can easily see if you watch a video with good audio but bad video, it's very easy to watch. If you watch a video with good video but bad audio, it's almost impossible to watch. Make sure people can hear what you're saying, because after all, that's the point of this. We're here to be heard, not to be seen, as much as that's a nice side of it. Think about what you're good at. Are you good at art? You know, make cartoons. Are you good at music? Use your music to have some kind of message about whatever it is you want to say. And this doesn't just apply to atheist YouTubing. This applies to anything that you want to talk about. Do it in a way that you're going to be most productive. Link it to something that you love, like music or art, or if you like telling jokes. You know, even comedians can get people thinking. However you want to do it, just do it with confidence and don't worry about the setup. Like Drew said, you know, I took my phone and I balanced it on one of these clamp things that was balanced on a box on top of my bed. With these industrial floodlights that I got on eBay that made my room go to about 60 degrees Celsius. And I did that for months. I did that for months and months and months. And then after all those months, I bought a microphone for like £20. And then I did that for a few months. And then I bought a tripod. And then finally I wasn't balancing the camera. And it's only now that, yes, I have a wonderful camera and lighting, but that's not even a problem. You know, if my house burned down and I lost all of this stuff, I'd still put out a video next week. You know, well, not while I'm studying and probably not while I'm sorting out my insurance for the house, but You know what I mean? You know, that wouldn't stop me in any way, and it shouldn't stop you either. If you've got something to say, then say it however you want to do it. That could be through writing. It doesn't have to be through YouTube. If you feel like you need the camera and so you don't want to do YouTube, then write a blog. You know, anybody can write a blog. Do it however you want to do it, but don't give the excuse of not having the equipment. I mean, I hear that all the time. Like it is an excuse. It's like the people who say that they don't have time to go to the gym but spend all this time, I don't know, watching YouTube videos, doing nothing, knowing full well that they do have the time to go to the gym, and they're just saying that. There's nothing wrong if you don't want to go to the gym, but don't say that you do want to go and make up excuses. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to make a YouTube channel, but don't say that you want to and then make up excuses. If you want to do it, then just do it.
Just do it, as the Nike slogan.
Somebody should make that into a slogan or something. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Well
so
for sure.
Yeah, well said, and rousing words with which to finish our 20,000 live stream celebration. Listen, guys, I really appreciate all of you joining me for this video. I feel as though the channel, wow, when I think back to when I first started in 2012, and I'm sure each of you can relate to this, you get 1 or 2 views and you think, wow, someone else can see me. And then sort of months go by, or maybe years go by, and suddenly it's going into the hundreds and the thousands, and it's just phenomenal. And I think that we're quite privileged, in fact, to live in a time where, thanks to the internet, thanks to YouTube, etc., it is possible to have a voice on this level, and I'm always grateful for that, and always grateful for the great friends and colleagues that I get to work with, and you know, I include you guys on this occasion, who help get the message across. So thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join me on this video.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
huge congrats to you. It's very well deserved, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you for a bit.
And congratulations on finishing up the writing on the new book and everything as well. It's going really well. 20,000 subs, new book. Like seriously, well done. This is really good, and I'm thrilled to have been invited to take part.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and I think you've actually coined a phrase here, Lloyd Logic. So we can celebrate that as well. Seems to be
Lloyd
that
Logic.
people are. Yeah, there you go. That's the title of your next book.
There's your tattoo, Alex.
Not enough
On
knuckles.
the fist.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be on your fingers. It can anyway. So on that note, again, thanks to all of you guys for joining me. Those of you in the live chat and those of you who will be watching this after the fact, I do hope you have enjoyed this video. And as always, thank you for watching.